Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And after a week off, we're back. It occurred to me, Casen, that we actually didn't tell anyone that we were going to take the week off last week because we decided on it at the last kind of day of the week. So
Yeah. Sort of just as things are for now, just as a heads up, we're both very busy. I'm going to be on vacation in a couple of weeks anyway, too. So we're going to be a little sporadic potentially with our availability.
yeah, and
But
until we probably hit the heart of March, where we'll probably hit a lot of those topics in like kind of in the heat of things. But yes, we both have a lot going on, but we're trying to make shows work as we can. We are here to we're here to talk. We're going to get into some NBA talk today, some NHL talk today, and we're going to bring you of the weeks. And of course, we are also going to touch on something that announced since we've been away, which we will have a college football video game this year, at least. So what we've been told, we'll get there. But before then, Case and I wanted to open with the breaking news, which we're recording this on a Monday. And I will say that this was breaking. I mean, I don't know how old the news is, but I saw this about 40 minutes ago.
it's about an hour or two. Yeah, I think at
Okay.
this point.
So go ahead.
It was announced. I don't know who officially broke it, but I saw it from Nicole Auerbach. But it was officially announced that the Mid-American Conference has invited the University of Massachusetts to rejoin the conference as a full member this time, which would be very interesting because previously they were in just as a football conference and then they left and they've been an independent for football. Um, and so now they'd be joining them back as a full member, which would be just very interesting. I mean, it extends the footprint significantly further east than Buffalo currently is the furthest point east.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions about what this could mean because obviously they're at 12, I think, right now, and so this would make it 13. So
Right.
clearly they'd be looking to add at least one more member, if not three, to make it an even 14 or 16. Um, so yeah, we'll see how that goes, but it's definitely interesting considering that they just spent a lot of time and effort putting uh, forth this pod plan about their
That's what I was going to
football
say.
scheduling, and so they're going to have to redo that now.
Well, I mean, they won't have to redo this upcoming year, right? They'll have to redo. They'll be doing it for the first time in
Yeah,
25,
yes,
26.
I will say, yeah, they are joining effective the 25-26 season. Yeah.
My immediate reaction to this was kind of like, oh, okay, but then when I got to really thinking about it, which it's nice that this happened so I can share it right here on the cast. I got to thinking about it and I was like, I wonder what the sales job was for the Mid American Conference because if you recall, Casen, little over 10 years ago when I entered Bowling Green first between the two of us, uh, UMass was in the conference as a football only member
Hmm.
for I want to say two out of my 4 years there, 5 years ultimately there. And what was interesting is that UMass's issue then was that they didn't want to be a member in everything. And specifically, they didn't want to move their men's basketball team. I want to say at the time out of the A10. Now, I don't think they're in the A10 anymore. They're not I'm sitting here trying to research it because I couldn't find anyone with that like story and all that. But I'm wondering if that's just the status of the athletic department that they've essentially said that our future in the Mid American Conference is better for all of our sports, which is fascinating to me because first of all, I think it's a great addition for the Mid American Conference, but also like you just kind of alluded to, is it a precursor to another member, another acquisition, maybe even before that season? I think it could be. I really
Yeah,
think it could be.
yeah. I believe they're currently in the A10 for everything else. Yeah.
So they're on the so interesting. So okay. So
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that definitely UMass is one of those schools where it's like you're not like they're not a huge brand where it's like a huge addition. But
Well, they are where they are in the location that they're at.
yeah,
We'll say in
in
like
the
that Amherst
region,
in
yeah.
that region. They are one of the major schools in that region.
Now, I mean, I saw a lot of people saying like, in what universe is Mid American Boston?
It's
But
not, but people said that when they were a football only member 10 years
I
ago. You know what I mean?
with UCF.
Right. Exactly. The Mid American Conference. The interesting thing about as realignment continues to happen it's going to be interesting to see how these smaller conferences play smaller. These group of fives and even lower than that conferences that I've had more dealings with as of late, right? Um, decide to essentially bank the future. In other words, I think we will see some conferences at the really lower levels completely merge, but I
Hmm.
also wouldn't put it past, like, say, a Mid American Conference, which, say what you will about the MAC, we've been consistent for years, since 1946 or whatever it was. It's, its core members have remained even through a lot of this change, and it's remained Mid American, and I've always kind of thought, what's another Mid American school that the MAC could pick back up? Whether it was days when
Hmm.
Marshall was dominating it, or now we got UMass, and then Temple came in for a while and all that. But the core has always remained that, like, that Ohio State school structure, right?
Hmm.
And then you have kind of just your outliers. But for the longest time, Buffalo seemed like the kind of weirdest school because they were furthest to the east. But you also got DeKalb, Illinois, with NIU, so going that far west. So I don't know. There's probably a lot of schools in there, but I always kind of tossed out like a Youngstown State, or like, could they lure up like an Eastern Illinois up from FCS or something like that? I don't know. I've always just kind of tossed around who could be
Yeah,
another
no,
Max.
absolutely. I mean, I think when I was looking at that, thinking about who the 14th team could be, or any potential 15th or 16th, I was thinking about, obviously you go back to thinking about Temple or Marshall, but I think at this point both of them are probably too big to be in the MAC at right now. Because
Yeah,
Marshall's really competitive in a very, very good Sun Belt.
yeah,
Um, and I think for a lot of people are thinking Western Kentucky. There's
I
been
could
a
see
lot
that.
of there's been a lot of mutual interest, which obviously having two different Bowling Greens in the
I was
same
gonna
conference
say,
would be
I
hilarious.
friend of the show, James, always used to say back in college that if we ever played Western Kentucky and Bowling Green should play each other every year in a football rivalry, and the trophy should be a green bowling ball.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah,
said that's genius. Like, that is actually incredible. The trophy should be like a green bowling ball with the years carved in it.
that would be
Battle of the
terrific.
Bowling
That
Greens. Yeah,
terrific.
that would be
Yeah.
amazing. But this needs to happen, right?
Yes, it has to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, and they've, I think, historically been interested. I believe, I, I feel like they might have been content in Conference USA previously, but as Conference USA has been expanding further along the South, they go all the way down to Texas. I think that the footprint for Conference USA is no longer maybe the footprint that Western Kentucky wants,
Well, so
because
look,
I remember that they had to play UTSA in like a
well,
Conference USA championship game.
think about, some bigger names have left that conference too. Cincinnati's out of
Yeah,
there now. Like,
yeah.
it's just not exactly the conference it was to be content. And Western Kentucky University is a pretty good sized school with a pretty solid brand. I mean, let's be real
Hmm.
here. Like, Big Red, and just that, having driven through there in my life, it's a nice campus there in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I really think that I mean, that would be a really welcome addition. Like, if I learned, like, oh, we get UMass and WKU in there, oh, the MAC,
Oh,
I'd be like,
100%.
oh yeah, that'd
I
be
am all
awesome.
on board. I would love that, because if we can get WKU, that would raise the revenue share for the whole conference.
Oh yeah,
And people are hemming and hawing about UMass just because they don't think that they'll bring a ton in, but Western Kentucky would
yep,
counteract that, and they would bring a lot in, I think,
yeah,
because their
and
brand and their historic. I mean, honestly, as of late, they've been really fun because they run an air raid. They're sort of the current day Mike Leach's Texas Tech.
isn't that where
Um,
Bailey Zappi went to school and
yes,
set all
it,
those
it it
records?
was,
Yeah.
yes. Bailey Zappi, yeah.
Which, to this
Their
day, with
their
with
their current coach is Clay Helton's brother.
should have been a Heisman
Um,
finalist that year. Just throwing it out there because Bailey
yeah,
Zappi had
oh,
all those
100%,
yards.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Anyway,
Um, but yeah, so that would be cool. I'm seeing. I mean, who knows if this is just kind of all pure speculation, but there's rumblings that we've seen about the NCAA trying to get away from single conference, or from single sport conferences, such as hockey with the NCHC and the CCHA, and so that would put all these conferences into finding an actual home, which
which is
would
which is
which
fascinating to hear that, based on what's happening in college football.
Because if you look, UMass does have a hockey program.
Yes, they do.
They're probably, typically fine where they are in the Hockey East, but
Yeah.
for what it's worth, there's all we've talked a lot personally, before this show about, all the hockey potential with the current MAC schools with, the history at Kent State and Ohio and things like that. And so just something to watch. Who knows if there's anything with that in the future, but
I want to throw this out there. My argument for getting Youngstown State in there is that regionally they're perfect, and also you honestly now have a MAC school right there in an area where let's just be honest, that brings the MAC into the Pittsburgh Western PA market very much so. Mid American Conference right there. Just considering that they give a lot of help to Eastern through Western Pennsylvania kid and Eastern Ohio
mhm.
kids. But the reason it won't happen is because they have an absolute gold mine in that FCS football program, and that's not going anywhere. And what's a bummer is if they ever wanted to actually expand, I really think that they could probably position themselves in a way that could get the Youngstown Penguins to be a competitor in the MAC right away. It's just that like it's really hard to make that argument when like your revenue is what it is. You know that the
I mean,
program's been
I think
fantastic. So
here's the thing though, is that they will be welcome. They will be more open to coming up, as a lot of other programs are, when it no longer makes financial sense to just hang out in the FCS
yeah,
for no reason.
and BG1 and everything
Like
else. Yeah,
it's going to be the same thing with, your North Dakota states and your South Dakotas. Like, what once it's no longer financially solvent to stay in a lower level program,
they'll
and
move
they'll move and decide to join the party.
for sure.
Because there will come a day when they will actually really want that revenue share,
Absolutely.
and I think that would be terrific. I mean, it just on the whole, if you give me, Wyoming and North Dakota State playing each other in a conference game every year, that'd be amazing.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. So, so keep your eyes on that. I think we both agree. Good move for the Mid American Conference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's on the whole good move for the exposure nationally, and I think definitely they're not going to sit at 13. They're going to find the 14th member.
Right.
So I'm really intrigued to see where they go from there.
I'll also just point out, hats off to UMass for coming around as far as becoming a full member because decade ago that wasn't the case. Well, a lot changes in 10 years. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
business wise. Anyway, that was the breaking news. I wanted to talk about another breaking news story because it transitions into the NBA. We're going to talk about that. We both wore our hats today. I like that of our rival teams we root for. Yes, I will say this: there was a rebrand that came out today that I actually didn't learn about Casen until about an hour and a half before we fired up the recording. And I was
Mhm.
and TikTok actually told me about it, and then I did a little bit more research. The LA Clippers, in addition to their new owner, there's been a lot of talk about that franchise this year as their new stadium in Inglewood is being built. What's interesting is it which there's been mixed opinions about their whole thing, the wall. They're trying to make it more of a college atmosphere, which I don't necessarily fault their owner for. I actually commend him a little bit more for that kind of eccentric stuff. That said, he's probably going to have to pull back on some of the rules with that because at the end of the day, it's still an NBA franchise. But that being said, one of the things I remember thinking at the time, I was like, so surely they're going to do a rebrand, right? Because the Clippers' current brand literally looks like it was thrown together, in a day, and it was because they were trying to get away from the Sterling stuff and all that stuff. Their new rebrand that they came out with today and their jersey concept and their new logo, I love it. I love it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up, literally just Google LA Clippers logo rebrand right now while you're listening to us talk about it because I think it looks fantastic. I think it combines it. Taking aside the fact that the Clipper, it's named after a type of sailboat. Clippers is more synonymous with where the franchise was founded in San Diego. Taking that aside, them kind of leaning into the whole boat aspect with their main logo and the use of their color scheme, and they bring the script look back, but it doesn't look like how they used to look. I think it looks great. Thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's amazing. I have long since I guess you well, sorry, I guess you could say made fun of the franchise for not really having a personality. Like, they don't really have a brand.
Yeah.
Like, their brand was just letters for the longest
Yeah.
time. Like, if you think back, the Lob City, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, Indiana Jordan Clippers, like they just didn't really have any identity as
Right.
far as what the brand was. And so this goes back to the actual purpose of the name, which I think is really cool. And then the boat thing. I don't know if they used to have. I feel like they used to have a boat as part of their logo when they were in San Diego. Maybe I feel like I've seen it
Way
before.
back in San Diego, I think there was a
But
secondary that had it.
yeah, but I think that's super cool. Very welcome. I part of playing like 2K and I've done franchises with the Clippers before. And so I've done that before of like changing the logo back to that boat look. Huge fan. I think it's a great move um to do in conjunction with opening a $2 billion arena. Um
I will
but
say, in a lot of ways, Steve Ballmer is the owner in a video game that you'd want to be. Takes over a franchise that's downtrodden, wants loves the team, wants to see them succeed. Literally
yeah,
says, "We're building a new stadium, we're getting new uniforms, we're going to be good." And he's like, he reminds me of like Mark Cuban when he first took over the Mavs. It's like,
yeah.
it's like we're going to come in and we're going to do all this stuff. We're going to be like a college team. And I appreciate some of the stuff he's doing in house is a little bit nuts as far as like, but I appreciate that it's all coming from a place of no, I want us to be a good team.
Yeah, I mean I definitely credit his willingness uh I mean he wanted the Clippers to have a chance to be their own franchise, step out from the shadow of the Lakers. So he's building a $2 billion stadium for them to be on their own,
Yeah,
on their own, which I mean obviously it's still LA, but you know how long it takes to get from one part of LA to another.
I do.
So I mean they might as well be, the Islanders versus Rangers like on the other sides of town. Like
Absolutely.
um the very far away. And so I think it works. I think it's cool. I'm still not totally sold on the wall thing because it looks very uncomfortable to like walk up because it looks like it's at like a I don't know like a 70-degree angle. Like it looks very difficult. And
Anyway, we're going to get back to our discussion about the wall. I may or may not have just cured hiccups for Casen. We're going to find out as we keep going here. But anyway, anyway, uh, like we'll see if it works. I don't know. We'll see. And if it does work, I might have to tell the listeners what it is. But it works for me every single time. But you were saying that you weren't so sold on the wall thing. I'm sold.
yeah,
I'm sold on the concept. I think the actual rules associated with it are stupid. But that's just me. Like, there's
yeah,
no
no,
way
yeah. If you, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we've talked about it on here before, but
we haven't. We haven't. It
the
was
the rules are like you have to be a verified fan. You can't scalp tickets. You can't resell tickets. Like if you get caught selling tickets, you're banned for life from the wall. Like there's a lot of like stuff built around people that are only like diehard Clippers fans being
yeah.
invited to be a part of the wall, which diehard Clippers fans.
I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't just make this. I mean, at first when I saw the wall, I was like this, which if you're referring to, there's this giant on one of the baseline sides. It's a really stacked, like really steep, all the way up one tier section. That's what we're, and they call it the wall, and it's going to be for the Clippers. There's a lot of our audience that probably doesn't follow the NBA that doesn't realize this is a thing that's being built. It looks cool. I honestly, when I first like saw the concept of it, it reminded me of the Nordeck, like for the crew. I was like, in
Mhm.
terms of its design, I was like, oh, that's cool. When I heard all the rules associated with it, I was like, dude, you're in LA. Like, this is already like hard enough to afford doing this. Like, I think part of it is also you have to be a season ticket holder or something like that, or like you essentially buy
I
season tickets to sit there.
yeah, I
And
think
I was
so.
like, dude, you're gonna run into a situation where, like, they might start it that way, but half of it is gonna come down to general admission eventually. Like it has to. Like you can keep some of those rules in place, but there's just no way you're gonna be able to fill that thing. Is the problem? It's gonna be more of a bad look, I think, eventually. But it's just
Yeah.
my
I
opinion.
mean, here's maybe this is a bit of a hot take, but I don't know. I mean, this feels like the perfect storm for the Clippers to really actually gain some steam in the city of LA
True.
as far as like fandom goes. I mean, the Lakers are borderline irrelevant I mean, and
Oh yeah,
I mean, they're very mediocre, and I mean, I think a lot of people probably stopped being fans when, when Kobe retired, and then
yeah.
along with his passing, it's just like I think a lot of people stopped caring.
I mean, don't get me
Um,
wrong, LeBron's there. Don't get me and they won a championship, albeit in the bubble, but they did win one with him. But
but I think that's part of the point is that they're
yeah,
not good with
they're,
him.
they're not good. But also here in like a year or two, when LeBron is no longer on that team, what do they have to fall back on? Nothing. They're going to be as
That
irrelevant as they've
that's my
ever
point.
been.
They're
Yeah,
gonna be very bad.
yeah. Like the positioning of this is very good for the Clippers if they can nail this correctly.
And
The
the
Clippers
Clippers are good.
Clippers are good. They have current stars locked down, and
Mhm.
they have an owner who clearly cares a lot about getting the draft right and stuff like that. And so I don't know. I think the Lakers have let's be real here. The Lakers have an ownership group, with the Bus family that has been able to just coast by on what their dad built. That's what the
Yeah,
Lakers
yeah.
that's what their lives have been out there, right? And if you look, most of our lives, Casen, has been just them moving the chess pieces just enough to keep that relevancy as much as possible, right? I mean, they were relevant in Kobe's final years because he was the only thing good about them. You know what I mean? To
Hmm.
the point where he was frustrated, famously. Um, and so, yeah, I think you're right on something there. I really think here in like a
I
year or
mean,
two, we'll be like, hey,
and
what was Kobe?
I think that the at least the concept of the wall tells me that Steve Ballmer understands that the number one key to actually getting this to gain steam in the city is creating the experience.
Yeah,
Like you're not coming to the game to watch the game because you can do that at home.
yeah,
You're coming to the game to watch the game in the arena.
in the arena. Yeah,
And so
you're paying to
and
see the
he
guy.
knows he's fully aware that you have to have a very unique experience being there
Yeah.
rather than just sitting on your couch at home.
It's like entering it's like the story of like the guy created Under Armour. Like he entered a market with already massive competition, but then like did things just different enough to make his own thing. Maybe that's a bad example, but in this case, you're taking this would be like the only equivalent would be like if Boston was gonna start another team or had another team there, and it was like we're trying to like you have the ultimate competitor across town, and it's like what do we have to do to really make this our own? And so far, I think he's checked every box.
Well,
So
I would say it's a lot like the Nets.
yeah,
Like the Nets moved to Brooklyn
yeah,
and they were competing with the Knicks
you're right.
when in a time when the Knicks were very bad. And what did they do? They embraced Brooklyn. They had Jay-Z courtside all the time, and it became kind of a thing. Like I think that if
True.
you just sort of embrace that area, and they have Inglewood,
And the
and so if
Nets
you
and the
just sort of
Nets
go off of that.
sorry. Sorry, I interrupted you. The Nets brand has really like continuously stayed strong since then. So at least it was since they were the J Kid Jersey Nets when I was growing up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so anyway, stick a pin in that. I really think and seriously, go check out those uniforms. They look great. I really like all three of them look fantastic. They have a red one, a blue one, and a white one. That blue one that like Kawhi is in looks incredible. I'm like, that's amazing. So that being said, we got our hats on. I will say that you're more the NBA expert guy. I have some hot takes on the maybe not hot take. I have some warm takes on the NBA here as of late in general, as an overall product. But we got to check in on the relevant stories. I probably haven't had hide or really thought about the NBA here as of late, and since Luca dropped 73 points about a month ago, right? But but what is your where do you want to start here? This is really more your area of expertise.
Um,
Always has been, probably always will be.
yeah, I mean,
Your
let's
Cavs
just
are second in the
well,
East behind
yeah.
the Boston Celtics. Yeah,
We'll just go with the top, the
sure.
top headlines. The Cavs are really good.
Yeah,
Which yeah, I mean, this is the best the Cavs have been without somebody named LeBron James on the team since the '90s when
yeah.
it was, the Mark Price and
Well, they were
Brad.
good last year, but yeah,
Well, I meant, yeah, like this the last couple of years.
collectively, yeah, they have a new
Yeah.
identity now. Like they're legitimately yes.
So and they're really fun to watch. I mean Donovan Mitchell, I think that trade obviously is a resounding success. I mean they're getting a ton out of him. Um
Maybe the greatest trade in that franchise's history, in terms of like in
yeah.
terms of at least recent history. Like I I don't want that's not acquisition, but I mean pure trade because because I did
Yeah,
not see this
yeah.
happening. But Donovan Mitchell, man, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that he would be quite this like, I guess you could say happy to really play hard for this team as much as I because you always hear about people getting traded to Cleveland and just sort of just playing throughout their contract and then leaving, but he seems to like it. There's a lot of discussion about his contract and free agency and stuff, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, the Celtics, as they've been good a lot recently, they are 5 games ahead to be in the best team in the league right now, the first
Yeah,
in the East. Celtics really good. Duh. It is what it is. But I would say that the shocking thing here that I don't think anybody really would have predicted in October. The Timberwolves are leading the Western Conference right now.
yeah, and they've looked great all year. Them and the
It's
Thunder.
it's the Timberwolves and the Thunder, which the
They've
Thunder was bound to happen. Um, their GM Sam Presti was just collecting picks left and right like they were pokeballs, and he was and there was I think there was the I don't remember the exact number, but he ended up having like I don't know, like 7 first round picks in 2 years or something like that
mhm.
because after trading away everybody that was a starter basically. They basically tanked for like a year or two, and then they had a bunch of first round picks.
See, I think Sam.
And
I think we may have mentioned on the show before. Like, I swear, Sam Presti's been on this mission ever since that nucleus with like Harden, Westbrook, and Durant like went away to prove to everybody that he's not a hack of a GM. Like, because everyone said
yeah,
that he made the wrong mistake, and he did make the wrong mistake letting Harden go instead of them. Which Harden, the rest of Harden's career, and him being like impossible to play with,
I
maybe he did at the time make the right
I
decision.
think it really needs to be
Like,
mentioned that
yeah,
Sam Presti has been there for so long.
2007.
He was the general manager of the Seattle Supersonics in
Yes,
2007.
the Thunder have had no other GM.
Sam Presti is 46 years old, and he's
Yeah,
been the general manager of an NBA team for 15 years.
I real and legitimately, I think he could be that franchise's.
Actually, what is that, eight, like 17?
Oh yeah, it's a long time. I mean,
It's a very long time.
yeah. I mean, I think he'll be that. Pat Riley. Um,
Yeah.
he'll be that franchise's Pat Riley. Like, I have no doubt that he's clearly showing that he like that was my whole point in saying that. I wasn't trying to knock him. I'm trying to kind of pull this up here too. It was like when we went down the stats for Pat Riley when the Heat made it to the title, made it to the finals last year. It's like you look at that guy's life, he's been involved with like 50%, 75% or more championships that have ever been played in the NBA history. Well, I like this. I like that Presti has shown that like no, like I'm actually a great basketball mind and know how to build a team. You know?
He built it. He built the contender, had it all fall apart, and then tanked, and then rebuilt the contender. I mean,
Exactly.
it's yeah. I mean, he's obviously really good at his job, and I think he does not get discussed enough as being like one of the best general managers in sports.
Absolutely.
Like he is easily one of the best.
So pulling it back to the standings, uh, the Timberwolves have been good from the jump this year. I just think a lot of things are going their way. I will say
Mm-hmm.
that similar to last season, and maybe this is I actually had this theory about something because for all the stuff and all the ways that the NBA took it in the teeth for the All-Star break and All-Star weekend, which is like low-hanging fruit to me. Like I could herald all those things and I agree with everything said. I will say that the last like couple of years, I'm kind of over here like I'm not paying as much attention to the NBA because I think the postseason is going to be that much more fun again this year. I almost feel like the NBA right now as I feel about college basketball in that sense. Like college basketball is all the way around still a much better product, but there's no clear cut team that's like incredible. Like as much as I want to sit here and say, oh yeah, the Celtics might be there again, they could fall apart hilariously like they did last year, or like Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Butler could just go off again, or just this is a fun time to be a general fan of it. That said, I don't know. I don't disagree with the people who say that the NBA is like the worst product out of all the major professional sports. I happen to agree with that take just because I think every other product does things better. But I can't deny and give praise when they're like, yeah, but like I'm like fascinated when the postseason starts, and that hasn't been the case in a long time. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that especially if you look at like the Western Conference where you have as of right now on Monday the Timberwolves and Thunder are tied in first place, and
mhm.
then just behind them by a game and a half for the Nuggets, by behind them by a game of the Clippers. So I mean there's a lot of like really close, really competitive teams in there, as the West is always competitive at the top. And it's going to be super cool because I mean these are I mean outside of the Nuggets, I guess, who just won, but like you have a lot of teams who don't really have a ton of success as of late. The Kings are in fifth place.
Yeah,
Like we talked about the Kings sort of Cinderella run last year.
light the beam.
They're still really good. I mean, Golden State is the 10 in the 9-10 playing game.
Yes, the play-in tournament. With
What are we doing?
my Chicago Bulls sit at 27-30 and are also number 9 in the East and would be in the play-in tournament, which they're not going to go any further than that. Um, I will say I'm still in the mode of, hey Bulls, you should blow it up, but that's just me. I'm not as ear to the ground as some other folks in Chicago are. I will say one of the provoking stories this year, at least or early in the season, was just how historically bad the Pistons are. Which
Yeah,
we we
yeah.
we talked about that at no point on our show this year, but we knew about it because we were joking about it. Like I always feel bad with everyone involved. It's like
It
Pistons
was also compounded by the fact of like Detroit Mercy college basketball is also historically bad.
bad. Yeah,
I think they have one win on the year, maybe two.
that's rough.
And so it was just very, very funny to compare the Pistons being just downright atrocious. Well, the Lions are having like their best season in 30 years.
In the history of their franchise, argue. um, and yeah, so it kind of got buried. It's like, oh, whatever. The Lions are carrying the whole thing right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
I will also say it's been
yeah.
cool to see Wembenyama. I thought when the year started, it's like, oh, this guy could be a bust. I'm like, are we really calling a guy who's played like 4 NBA games a bust? Like, this is a little bit ridiculous. He's built like an alien, quite literally. He's just on the Spurs, who are terrible.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
that hasn't changed anything.
it's a lot like Chet Holmgren, where it's like, I mean, Chet Holmgren is just an equally tall, like lanky dude that was irrelevant until the Thunder actually could compete as a team. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot to be interested by. I mean, the Grizzlies, which was a big conversation about John Morant and stuff. They're sitting pretty well outside the playoffs right now.
And Jaw's out for the year, isn't he?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he's in a lot of ways, things from last season have kind of told him sit down, be humble in a lot of ways.
yeah.
I hope he.
I believe he had a shoulder injury, I think is what that was.
It was a while ago now, but that's why the
Yeah.
Grizzlies have remained irrelevant because you and I were sitting here last year around this time and other times saying if I guarantee that if he was playing, he would have been a storyline already this year, like
Well,
from something.
I don't know for sure, but he came back and he only played like a handful of games, and
He came back from the suspension, played like 5 games and got hurt, and it's been
yeah,
out since. So it's like okay, so the year without Morant basically,
yeah.
because that's what this is.
Um,
That's what this is. So that being said, I wanted to circle back and ask you. So the Cavaliers this year, since you have a dog in this fight, very much so. I will ask, how far do you think they're like? How far do you think they could go this year? I mean, do you think that they'll make a real more significant run this year in the
it's going
playoffs?
to depend on their path. I mean, depending on where they end up. I mean, they could end up facing, like somebody like the Bucks in the second round. Which
They
I
could
don't know.
beat the
I
Bucks
mean,
this year.
yeah, I mean, we've beaten them a couple times. The Bucks, again, we did not really talk about this, but the Bucks fired their coach they were not lose, like they lost like a game or something, and they fired their coach, and then they just hired Doc Rivers. It was a very weird situation
Remember, I
because
gave him an of the week.
yeah,
I gave him an upset of the week. Him getting another job. So yes,
yeah, which yeah, I that still has not really gone very well. Like they still aren't super like as dominant as they should be.
there's still turmoil. So
Shocking. You hire Doc Rivers and it's a Doc Rivers coach team. Surprise.
It's a Doc Rivers coach team that has Dame time on it and Giannis, and it's like really like
Yeah, I think this is definitely this feels to me again like the CP3 um Suns, where it's just sort of like there's one
yeah,
ball. Like, what do you do?
it's one ball.
There's
Yeah,
just so many people on this team,
yeah.
and it's just kind of like just constantly adding playmakers, like you're forming an all-star roster, is just really not the best way to do it.
It's also not the
Because
way that the league's trending towards. Like it really these last like what's been our discussion about the NBA and our brief time we've had this show has really been talked about how it's actually really good that it's going to okay, yeah, you might need one star, but you need a bunch of role players who can help that and can cohesively be a good unit around it. And that's honestly who's been winning the titles as of late. Yeah, sure, you're gonna like, but as the like, yeah, sure, like a real good superstar can still carry a team, but I think like we're kind of slowly leaving behind the super team era and showing that that kind of team building isn't really working, especially as the guys get older. And
yeah,
and the reason I say that is because we're starting to get a glimpse of what the post LeBron NBA is going to look like. And that's in the post Steph NBA is going to look like. And it's fascinating to me.
I think here's the thing though. If you look at like the super team, it, the super teams that actually worked, I would say there's only two. It's
Mm,
the Heat and the Warriors with KD.
yeah,
The Heat worked because LeBron, Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were actually all friends. And so they were able to actually just figure out how, and they struggled. Like they struggled for a
they
long
did.
time
They did.
to get into the groove, like in the season to figure out how to work together. But they are friends, and they figured and they knew how to like play and work with each other, and so they were able to get that done. And then the KD Warriors, I just chalked it up to KD being willing to do whatever it took to win a ring
Including
because
being a role guy.
because they played through KD when they had to. He like that's a lot of Steve Kerr being a really good coach. That's a lot of KD probably swallowing a lot of pride
Yeah,
just to get rings
it
because he
is.
wanted them so bad. Um and we've heard since about how toxic it was sort of behind the scenes at times.
Sorry, that's my impression of a
Yeah,
snake.
yeah.
Snake in the grass.
And so
Those have never gotten old to me.
right. Well, and we just seen with Kyrie and then going to Phoenix, like we've seen sort of how they ended up falling apart.
Yeah. So
And so yeah, I think at this point it's that these current players just don't understand how to play with each other because everybody has to be the number one guy and
well, see
nobody
that
is willing
I
to
think the younger guys, I think the younger role players do understand that because a lot of the guys playing currently and who are currently in college and coming up through the ranks, even as the one and dones, are all the guys who saw the era of the super teams, right?
well that's what yeah that's what I'm saying is that
Oh,
like
okay, yeah, I get you.
the like you look like Dame was the guy in Portland. You put him on a team with Giannis, who is the guy in Milwaukee.
It's
Like
not working.
there's one ball.
Exactly.
You both can't get 40 every night. Like
Exactly.
I don't know how you took it to work.
For sure. There's one last question I want to ask you about. It pertains to the NBA. That is more of an interesting topic of conversation for someone like yourself, more of a NBA head than myself. How do you feel about the whole load management conversation? I mean, we have it more. It seems like it's more relevant these days in terms of hurting the product than it's been in a while, and I think people are just finally fed up with it and are saying that.
Yeah, so it's very interesting to talk about this year because this year they implemented a policy in which to be eligible for yearly awards such as MVP,
Yep.
Defensive Player of the Year, whatever, you have to play I, I think it's 66 games or something. Like you have to play
It's most, yeah.
basically most of the games. I don't know if it's like 3/4 or whatever the actual number is, but
I'll look it up.
I think it's like 66 games.
You keep going.
Um, and so that comes into a lot of that comes into play with somebody like Joel Embiid, where Joel Embiid I think has missed too many games at this point to be eligible for MVP.
Mm,
Um, and yeah,
65. So you
65.
were almost
Okay.
right on the dot. Yep.
Um, and so yeah, I definitely don't
For at least
hate.
20 minutes in 65 games too. That's another part of it. Sorry. Wanted
Okay,
to throw that out there.
that's
That's
a
another
good
part of
point.
it. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I think that in the spirit, I get it, and I think it's probably for the best. However, I just do foresee a situation in which there's a clear MVP of the season, and he gets injured and ends up playing 64 games and isn't eligible. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or he plays 19 minutes in his 65th game and is barely ineligible to be MVP. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Like there's just having these arbitrary numbers does not tackle the problem, because you could have somebody, get injured and have them be a casualty of the rules or whatever. But
For sure.
it definitely we saw the problem of how the players approach the game of basketball at the All-Star game. I mean, it was again a very bad All-Star game of just not basketball. Like them just constantly going back and forth, just chucking up threes, just
I mean it I mean is I real question, is the WNBA a better product than the NBA right now? I mean, I in terms of its competitiveness within its league, maybe, maybe not. It doesn't really matter. They're two different leagues. But the reason I point that out is because everyone pretty much agrees that Steph and Sabrina was like the only really good thing of the entire weekend. Other than that, the rest of it might as well have not happened. And I think there's a bigger
yeah.
conversation to be had. If we'd had our show a week ago, I was going to come on here and ask you, should we just do away with All-Star games altogether
Well, that's a good conversation
in
to bring
professional
up.
sports? I mean, we don't have to have that whole conversation now, but I mean,
I mean, I would answer your question with yes. Like
name me a single
I fail to understand the point.
name me a
Like,
single. Yeah, this generation doesn't care about them clearly, and players coming up don't care. The one sport that I think, out of sheer stubbornness, will never get rid of it is the All Star game in Major League Baseball, because for the longest time that one did have the most pageantry. And I'll say as a fan, the home run derby is still very competitive and still very, actually very, like, the format of it has changed, yes, but it has the opposite issues that the dunk contest has. Like, what's the perfect way to do it, rather
mhm.
than none of our stars are competing in it. Oh, the stars are competing in it in the home run derby. I still love the home run derby,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
I'll watch that. It's hard for me to watch outside of the beginning of the
My
All Star game. No way. I just
my problem, yeah, I not to go off a tangent, but like
no,
my
but
problem with the home run derby is like when I play it in the show or whatever, like like somebody can beat somebody with 13 and you get 28 and lose because the other person scored 29.
exactly. Yeah,
It's like what is going on here?
right.
But
Exactly.
they
But
need to
you
make it just be like everybody total up and then the last couple fall off.
right. But you care about it. See,
Like the 3-point contest.
it's a different problem. The problem isn't like the problem is, oh, it's actually still popular, and we're trying to find the best way to actually format it to find the best hitter of long balls, for this point of the season. Um, that's the opposite problem the NBA have. It's like, oh, none of this people care about because it's just awful.
Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just formulaically, not to upset friend of the show James, but like as the sport of baseball is sort of getting less and less popular as it has been in years past, it the home run derby is like as popular as ever, if not more,
Oh, it's
because it's just so fun to watch.
everybody loves the long ball, but
And the NBA, which probably dominated some, the winter sports ratings and stuff for the last 10 years. The All-Star game has been bad for a very long time. The
right
All-Star
and
weekend has been
right
bad.
and I still like skills night and the NHL All Star Game tournament, but like even it like is already a niche sport, and it's like unless you really go out of your way to watch it, people don't care about it either. So it's just kind of like I don't know, and And this goes back to what I said regarding like the Pro Bowl's fun, but it's like, okay, let's get to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It that's one of those things in sports where it's like, look, we collectively as an industry might need to move past all-star games in general. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the problem with it is that people don't want to play hard in the middle of the season when they could get injured and miss half the
Exactly.
season.
Exactly.
Like that's why we're not seeing dudes be in the dunk contest.
Right.
Like if anything, I would say everything should model themselves off the Pro Bowl and move to the end of the season before the finals.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah.
Would like that'd be kind of interesting if like the or like you know that dead week around the ESPYS in the summer, have the NBA All Star weekend there.
I
Like
I don't know about that because that's literally in between seasons. But I always we talk about this. Remember, I talked about it on the show last year. That's the deadest week in all of sports in America, in like the world, basically, but specifically in America, because that's the one week where everything happens. Like the All-Star break happens in baseball, nothing happens, and then like the next day the ESPYS happen because the entire week there's nothing. There's no sport of any kind happening. So yeah, so you can't put it there, but that sentiment I agree with. It's kind of like, yeah, you don't want you right. The bigger prize is down the road. And it's like, would you rather me try hard in this, or would you rather me try harder down the stretch for an actual championship, which you're going to get twice as mad at if I don't do that.
yeah, which again, I will mention the dunk contest was won by it was a back-to-back champion Mac McClung,
Yeah,
who isn't even in the NBA. He's like a two-way G League player.
yeah, he's a G League
And so
guy.
people are
Yeah,
just like, what is like the last player to really go hard for the dunk contest was Aaron Gordon, and he was probably only really going hard because he played for the Magic and they weren't competing for anything.
now was he after Zach Levine?
They were together, so
Yeah,
it was Aaron Gordon and Zach Levine, of which the Timberwolves at the time who were very bad and the Magic who at the time were very bad. Like that's why, like, because it's like
right.
if you get injured, you don't care. You're not in the playoffs. Like you don't
Right.
care.
And I always said to myself, hey, Zach Levine, now that you're on the Bulls, can you just come back for like one last dunk contest? Because it would just be awesome to see like Bulls play. But it's like, I won it twice, man. Like, I don't need it. So I don't know. How do you fix this whole thing is to not have it. I don't know. But you need it for money's sake. But I don't know if this is a fixable thing. I just think that we'll be having the same conversation for the rest of Oblivion until they try something new. But um, is that it for the NBA? Can we move on to the NHL?
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into it.
So we wanted to put in here. I put literally in our lineup. I said some ice time because back in, I'll tell you that it used to be ice time. We used to call it ice time on the Sports Corner days. But I'll be honest with everybody here. I've specifically really been following the Penguins just because their season's been an interesting one in that the Penguins are officially doing the thing that I thought they would start to do, and it's that they're going by way of the Blackhawks. Like they're coming down to earth. Like I don't think the Penguins are gonna. They didn't make the playoffs last year. I think we're gonna be probably well out of the playoffs this year. And there's like I've said when we like I was saying when we were like 5 episodes into this show, Casen, I'm okay with that. Like a lot of people are freaking out. I'm like, guys, this is the natural weight rate of things. Our guys are old, like our core is aging. We again, I saw the highest highs when I was low, when I was young, like the MCU. If it's not that great the rest of my life, it's okay. But as my fandom goes, it has been interesting to see some of the same kind of usual suspects because in the NHL this year, I don't think there is like a one dominant team. I mean, we see in the East, we see the Bruins again towards the top, at the top, 81 points. Their match with the Rangers right now, still with that same core they have. I don't know if this is necessarily the year where they kind of figure it all out, the Rangers, but we'll see. I am curious to see kind of what your take is as far as your Knights out there in the West, because the Canucks have probably been the biggest surprise this year. At least for me, they have, because that for me they're known as the fail whales. So it'll be interesting to see if they continue that as we get closer. Because I wanted to double check something too. The trade deadline is coming up in the NHL, and we're probably gonna have to revisit this whole topic.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, we can discuss that when that happens. But yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about my Knights and
your Knights.
uh just a little bit of hardware that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
managed to
yeah,
get.
yeah. Yes,
But
of course.
there's a championship hangover that happens a lot, and we've been um a little unlucky with some injuries. Jack Eichel's been out a lot. Mark Stone's out for a while. So it is what it is. I mean, we have been relatively like injured here and there for a lot of the last couple of years. And last year we just happened to get healthy when it mattered. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I we're currently fifth in the West right now. We're still in there. We're still in position for the playoffs. Um, so I mean, I'm not sitting here thinking we're gonna repeat at this
No,
point. I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, if we can get healthy towards the end of the season and ready to for the playoffs, maybe we'll be able to go on a little run to at least be competitive to follow up
my other
championship.
like observation over the course of this year is that is the kid good? Yes. Is it once again we another comparison to Crosby and all? It's like, well, we'll see. But Connor Bedard has not led the Blackhawks to the promised land in any way. They're still bad. I mean, I figured that was going to happen
Yeah.
because they're not good in any other area. But one of the more interesting stories here in the league as of late, like a lot of the regular things are happening. Like Bruins are good and all that stuff. What's funny is, in the Atlantic, the Leafs have been up there. Also, Matthews doing his thing. Obviously, they're 74 points. They're third in the Atlantic. But like, I just know the Leafs are going to fall apart. Like they're the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not to do it to another, not to another Canadian team. I hate to say that, but I just a lot of the stuff's usual suspects are coming up. The core is finally paying off in Detroit. That's been nice to see. The Red
Hmm.
Wings are relevant again. They're trending in the right direction. I have this sneaky suspicion that Tampa Bay is going by way of the Penguins. That like their core is doing their thing, and regardless, I actually just look at the stats here. Um, Nikita Kucherov is still leading the league in points, and that's not really surprising. But they are not necessarily the world beaters that they've been. I wanted to actually pull up the wild card here too, and just kind of suspect because in the wild card in the East right now, I mean Tampa Bay is the second team out of it. Penguins are all the way back at fifth. So I mean, a lot of the same stuff here going on. Uh, what my point in kind of just setting the table there is I think we could really see a team make an interesting run here. I'll have more to say once the trade deadline happens, but I really think because the trade deadline in the NHL usually has some pretty significant movement, and usually those moves make a difference. I think I could see the Rangers trying to load up again, although they loaded up last year, so I think they might just try to roll with what they have.
Well, I mean the Rangers, uh, the Rangers are technically, I mean, and they're tied for first in the East.
They're
They're
tied for
very
first in the East. They're both the most points though in the league right now is the Canucks, which is why I
yeah,
said they're the most surprising.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
I would still say the Rangers are surprising to me anyway that they're, on par with the Bruins. Like
Well,
they've been adding talent. I mean, they've been, they've been able to get some picks the last couple of years that are now, I think, rounding into form. And
yep.
they this is, I think, the first year they've been living up to what they were supposed to be anyway.
I will say, based on where I
We'll see
live,
if that translates to the postseason.
right
But
where I live, at least currently, there's been some rumblings that the Hurricanes might make some noise at the trade deadline. That would actually
that
be
would
kind
make
of cool to
sense.
see because they're second in the Metropolitan right now. I've watched that team, smack the Penguins around, quite frankly, and it's like okay, like it would be nice to, you know, this year I'm just kind of enjoying hockey as I can see it, things like that. I'm going to bring up the Penguins too later on in of the weeks, but yeah, I mean, right now I can still see maybe a strange team coming out of the well coming out of it similar to the NBA did last year, but more strange than it was telegraphed that the Knights were going to be extremely good come
Yeah.
the, come the come the playoffs, which they were really good. So yeah, that's what I got. Anything else on the NHL, or do you want to wait for the 8th of March, which will be the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any guesses as far as the trades go, but yeah, I think it could get very interesting because you do have a lot of these older players on teams that probably don't really have much to play for. So, and you have a lot of contending teams that
Hmm.
are probably in the market for some of them. So it could get very interesting. Well, I mean, we'll discuss it if it happens, but we'll keep an eye out for that for sure.
The reason I point out the veterans as well is like I haven't heard anything about the Penguins looking to offload, but I know some of those role players like Jake Ensel's been floated out there as a team that, as you know, the Penguins could flip for some younger assets for some guys like that. Uh, Probably not from your Knights because they're already still a very young team. But I look at it's not even going to be this significant, at least this year. But I look at the Penguins right now going into that era of like sort of the Blackhawks the last few years, where they offloaded a lot of stars there towards the very end. Now Penguins via contract have showed that that probably wouldn't happen with them at least for the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years with some of them. But look for some names to be on the move. Just saying. But you want to get
Hmm.
into the EA Sports conversation because I think this is something we
Sure,
need to
let's
talk
do it.
about in its own right. We're at a good pace with the show. Look at the old stopwatch. But in the last week and change, we got two things. We got the initial reveal. We got the initial reveal where the guy was talking in the Rose Bowl and everything. That it is we are working on it. It's on the way. Showed a little bit of flash there, flash there. It is called
And they said that the announcement, which I would imagine is the cover athlete
yes.
announcement, is coming in May.
Probably the trailer as well. I would
Yep.
imagine an actual trailer
Yep.
uh, is coming in May, and they revealed it now. It is called EA Sports College Football 25. What's funny to me is I thought, can we finally rectify the year and make it 24? Because that'll be the year the sport is. They're like, nope, it's 25. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Because it's
Yeah,
always
it's
the
just,
year.
it's the same thing with Madden. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm like, can you guys at least take a moment to correct the year? It's like,
I
nope,
guess
it's
it's
25.
it's the year of whenever the championship is played because
Yeah, and I've always
it's technically going to be the 25 national championship.
right. And
Yes.
going into the 12-team playoff, that's never been more obviously the case, right?
Yeah.
So it works, but let's be real. 25 as a number is just like a solid, it's a good marketing thing on a package, right? But so we got that news, and then about a week after that, which was middle of this past week, and it's Monday when we're recording, we got the news that all players, if they opt in, are going to get $600 and a copy of the game. At very minimum, like everyone who's in it, who decides to use their likeness and all that stuff, because not everyone is approving it, which is fine.
Which
Uh,
I think we've seen, I think was about, because I remember when we talked about it last year, I think it was around, I think it was floated around $500 last year. So I think it's about what we thought.
right, and I and,
Um,
and to be honest with you, that's like more than I thought they would get, which is why I was like, okay, EA Sports, like
and so somebody did the math, and I think it's around 1,100 players in FBS right now. And so if you do that multiplication, that comes up to be about $6.6 million in NIL expenses if everybody opts in.
yeah,
Of which we have heard there are players who will not.
yeah,
There are dudes who will not. I saw there was you saw some players. Well, part of it was you saw all the programs announcing they were in the game with like the graphic that the EA made, and they tweeted out, and then the players were announcing that they were in the game when they opted in. Like I saw Denzel Burke
yeah.
from Ohio
That
State.
was pretty cool to see.
I think I saw Brock Horn from Bowling Green did that, so that's super cool to see
That is
dudes
awesome.
from Bowling Green. And I was like, get that bag, $600.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, hey, it's not a lot, but if you're talking about kids at Bowling Green or other lower like mid-major conferences like the MAC, $600 is great.
Well,
Like
not only that, but it like again, it's the SID in me, right? I'm like, you will forever be in that game. Yeah, that was the year that it came back, and it became a staple again, of which the kids playing right now don't remember NCAA football. They've only seen videos and TikToks and stuff. You were in the actual video game, so like if you keep that copy or digital or otherwise, literally you can show that to people in the future. Be like, that's me. I was in this game. And for the majority of college football players, that's a really special thing. I don't know. You should value that too. I
I mean, I can understand some guys that might feel slighted, like they feel like they're worth more,
yeah.
whatever. Would you rather not have $600 in the copy of the game for free? Like and not be in the game? Like
the
I'm
majority
confused.
the majority of guys would have been like, I would have been in the game for free. Just give me a copy.
Precisely. Like
I don't care.
I get the argument for, your your Quinn Ewers, your Shadur Sanders,
100%.
whatever.
100%.
I get the argument for the elite guys being mad that they're not getting more, but at the same time, would you prefer to just not be in the game
Yeah.
and be remembered as the guy who didn't want to be in the game?
Yeah, and you know what, Casen, I'll revisit this. It was about something I don't want to stay on topic here. Exactly. And you're going to be more remembered, I think, as someone who didn't opt into it, but also look at it as a missed opportunity. But unless you're a guy who's like worth more to where you think you can like with through an agent negotiate more,
Mhm.
just opt in, guys. Get your $600. Get the yeah.
I said this before a year ago when we talked about it the first time. This can be parlayed into more money.
Yeah.
Like for instance, you opt into the game as a quarterback of Louisiana Tech, and then let's say some Twitch streamer starts playing with Louisiana Tech,
Oh, that's
and
true.
you go viral as the quarterback for
Yeah.
Louisiana Tech. Like you know who I'm talking about. You can like you and then you can get more NIL deals for just for being famous on the internet.
Yeah.
Like it's very it's a tool. The $600 is essentially free advertising.
Not only that, but I'm just gonna say this to these guys who are too like prideful to like want to take the cash or whatever. I'm gonna tell you this right now. You will be kicking yourself when the whole freaking locker room is playing it and you're not in it. Like the whole campus is playing it. Like your friends, your brothers, their siblings, and everyone's asking you the question of why didn't you opt in? Like you're gonna have to answer that question 1,000 times over. So
Yeah.
I hope you're ready for that high horse. You're for that hill you're willing to die on. Just be ready to die and be just. I'm kidding, of course, but you get what
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
right? I
well,
mean,
you're gonna have
yeah.
Chandler from math class being like, "Hey, bro, why aren't you in the
Why
game?
aren't you in the game? And
Like
that's going to
I'm trying
happen
to
like a
play with
thousand
us."
times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
So all power to you. I'm not saying like don't try to advocate for more or whatever. For your reason, I'm just saying this is a like this is like it's hard to describe to people. This is like a moment in time. This is like historic. I never thought this game was coming back, and up
mhm.
until we got that actual announcement, I still didn't. I'm literally sitting here thinking, Kason, what if this dropped during the national championship like we thought it was going to? It just drops like at halftime, like that initial announcement thing.
Yeah.
I would have fallen on the ground. Okay. I would have gone out my front door and ran around the parking lot screaming. Okay. Enjoy. Like it absolutely like, but the way they're doing it, like they've really made it now kind of something to look forward to during spring ball. Like I kind of like how they're kind of
hmm
trickling information like, hey, spring ball's starting up everywhere. Like, hey, this is on the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the reluctancy to announce anything about it has been more about the uncertainty of the sport.
Yeah.
Like we've had constant realignment.
Yeah.
There's been consistent questions over like, the playoff technically still wasn't really a done deal as far as the format. And all that has to be factored into the game. And so I think a lot of it was the fact that they were still waiting on details of how the sport looks. So
Right.
they didn't really know how to finalize stuff. And and they really I think EA Sports absolutely knows how important it is to get this right.
I agree.
And from what we saw, we saw the video of Chris Fowler talking about how much work they've been putting into
Under the in the
recording.
background.
He said they've been working on recording the play-by-play conversations for 2 years over saying every team's name, every possible permutation of play of down and distance. He was talking about how they even just for the fun of it to make sure they had the tracks for it to say, kicking a 70-yard field goal or punting on second down. Like he was saying that they factored in people playing it really in really
Stupidly.
dumb ways.
Yeah.
And so it should be fun because it should be really fun. And that's something that Madden doesn't have. Like
Right.
if you ever play Madden like an idiot, like they don't really have anything to talk about. They just say, "Oh, that's weird." Like that's a really I don't know if I agree with that call.
You ever played Madden like an idiot? He says. Well, in play college football like an idiot, right? I think there are separate teams too, and I think they always were. People were like, "Oh, it's gonna be
Yeah.
like Madden." I'm like, no, they were always separate teams. Like like they're gonna monetize it, but they always care about it a little bit more. And I actually wanted to pull this up while you were talking there. Confirmed personalities in it as of right now are Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit. Obviously, we knew those two were going to be in it. Desmond Howard and Reese Davis so far. Um, there's been chatter on the internet. Uh, like I think there's speculation for who the sideline reporters are going to be, but there's like up to 10 names attached to this. It's probably going to be like in the seven.
I think Polak is in it. I think I saw that he was in it.
I believe so. There's going to be like that. Those are the only ones that have been confirmed though. Like the game day crew.
Yeah, yeah.
What if
It would be very funny if Pat McAfee's in
That's
it.
what I
That'd
was
be
gonna say. What if like out of nowhere when something crazy happens, like you get like a 50-yard field goal, it's just like, Pat, what'd you think about that kick? It's like, oh man, and just like they you get like an unlockable cutscene with Pat McAfee you can only get
no.
in the game.
It's like if you're playing Texas and Austin, there's a cutaway with Matthew McConaughey just laughing it up on the sideline.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what's funny is like I can totally see him being in the game in the future, if not this time around,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
Because
100%.
like the marketing aspect of him, and if it goes as well as I think this first launch is going to go, there's not a soul attached to the sport that's not going to want to be in there somewhere. Like, put me
Yeah.
in there somewhere. I don't. I
Well, because it sounds like they're gonna have the game day like pre like some code of like
mhm.
pre-show coverage, cut scene type of thing before. So
There were years when the NCAA football game made it look more like college game day, where Lee put the mascot on
mhm.
head in the beginning. There were times when they cut back on that. There were times when they did other stuff, and then towards those later years, they just made it really streamlined, and it was just them calling the game. Shout out to Brad Nessler. He's fully retired, I think. But back in the day, it was Brad Nessler and Kirk in the booth for every game.
Mhm.
And then way back in the day, it was Brad, Kirk, and Lee who called the game, in the video game. And for the longest time, that was the case. Um, it would be nice. Hopefully, I saw someone float around putting Lee on the cover. I was like, maybe they're like, I don't know who they put on the cover of this thing. I've even talked about like, will they have multiple covers? I could see that
Mhm.
because I think similar to Madden, I think they're going to have different editions of the game.
So
Personally,
I think like here's the question of like, would you want to go with like an outgoing player who was the best player this past season, or an expected player this coming season that could flame out by November? Like, what would like, you know what I'm saying? Because like it'd be really weird if you trying to think if you put like Spencer Rattler on the cover,
yeah.
like the one year he was supposed to be really good. And like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how you like I feel like you would have to pick somebody that's done playing and their legacy is already cemented.
You know an idea that I have seen floated around, that out of all of the ideas I've seen floated around and all of the parodies I've seen floated around, they won't do this, but there's one idea that I thought to myself that would be perfect if they did that. They all, among the guys who opt in, they somehow invite those they collage together the guys who would have been on the cover these past like 10 years. Like
Yeah,
they like
I think that would be great.
I like not all of them will say yes to it, but out of the guys who say yes to it, you put it like in there, like they're not going to do that because they would rather have like a photo shoot with someone and make it like a big thing or all that. But make that one of the additions of the cover, because that's the one I would want. Like, make it known that, listen, if we had had it all these years, these would have been the guys, like, or they would have been in the conversation. Maybe not all the Heisman winners, but like put Lamar Jackson in there. But like, yeah, I'm just trying to think of some others. Maybe Baker one year. They won't put Manziel on the cover, but like guys like that who have like a positive connotation, maybe. I don't know. I just like there. That's too complicated, and I don't know if you can get that good of a cover out of that doesn't look like a GTA cover. So they
Mhm.
probably won't do that. But I was like, if there was a way to do that, that would have been that actually is incredible, and that is like the actual cover I would want. But
Well,
whatever.
that's a really good point. Yeah, I think that would be a really good idea. I don't know, I was just thinking about like moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen somebody think about, well, I've seen people throw around Saban having like an alternate like like an alternate edition with Saban on it.
I could see him on an alternate. People are like, why would
The
they put a coach on? I'm like, come on. I can see
there's
him on an
there's
alternate, but
been
yeah,
conversation. Somebody was saying of like renaming the game after Saban, like
no,
Madden.
no,
I didn't like that. So that was
no.
dumb.
I actually think it has I think it's got the perfect name because there's never going to be like another situation where you have like someone who was involved himself into the if I mean by the end of his life the only person I can think of who deserves that title with this game in terms of his involvement with it since the beginning is Kirk. Like I didn't talk about that Kirk Herbstreit
Hmm.
college football because literally Kirk's been a part of every single one of them from the very beginning, and has had more influence and say he's essentially been the John Madden to that series. Like
That makes a ton of sense.
they
That's a
pick
really
his
good
brain
point.
about a lot of stuff. Like his relationship to that video game in its history is more like Madden's was with Madden at the very
Well, it's
beginning.
it's also the
So
fact of like there is no person more synonymous with college football than Kirk Herbstreit.
yeah, once upon
Like,
a time you could have called it Corso football. Once upon a time, for this current generation, Kirk Herbstreit is the guy, and he's going to be involved for he's in his what 50s. He's going to be involved for the next 30 years at least. So I mean, I don't know, but um, that being said, I think every coach would tell you celebrate the players, pick a good player.
mhm.
I say pick an outgoing player. I'd be fine if you put whoever won the Heisman. Who was it? What was his name? Jalen Daniels or whatever.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, Jaden Daniels.
Jane Daniels. I'd be okay if you put him on the cover. I'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. But they really should think. Bet they have an idea. They got to do a legacy cover where it's like a collage or something.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just a collage of great moments. You know, where like one of the pictures is the guys at the desk for game day. I don't know. I just acknowledge for me someone who remembers and has so many happy memories associated with with childhood because of that game series. Acknowledge how long it's been and how long of how I went through basically my whole 20s without this video game.
Well, here's the thing
Like,
though, too, of like to me, if they were going to do something as simple as just put Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels on the cover, they would have announced that by now. They would have announced that with that
mm,
teaser trailer.
yeah,
So to me, the fact that they're not going to really announce the cover till May, like a month or two before the game comes out, that tells me that they might need a lot of time to get whatever they're doing around
I could
and
also see
together.
them putting a bunch of mascots on it, which I'd also be okay with.
That would be very funny.
That would be hilarious. It's just EA Sports logo, and it's just all these mascots. And
That'd
then
be
they
very
and
funny.
then in the trailer they also say, "Oh yeah, by the way, mascot games are back." Boom, and that's like the last thing you see in the trailer. I would lose my mind. I would be like, "Yes, yes, you listened, you put it," because they haven't said anything about that yet. I'm like, I guarantee that's like a gem they're sitting on. Like, hey, what if they come out and they're like, yeah, mascot games are back and we've made it basically like NFL Street was? I'd be like, I will pay you $300 for this game, not a cent less if that's what you ask me for. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
I
insane.
they know people want it. I'm sure they'll give it. Maybe not this year, but
Oh yeah,
soon. I know they'll definitely bring that back. I know.
but like, it's weird to say, but like when I saw that reveal trailer, like I almost got emotional, like because I go ahead and admit that on the cast because it was like, not only is it happening, but it's like real. I'm one of the people who have missed this. Go ahead.
Well, I no, you continue.
Well, I was gonna say was like it didn't feel real until I actually saw that announcement, and then when they did the thing where they showed all 133 FBS teams, and they went through, and that was that montage of all of them, and we all
Mhm.
got a slip. So I saved the BG and Syracuse ones. I was like, ah, there it is. Um, those little title cards were cool, but it was also like every football program in the country was like, "We're in the game, we're in the game." I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone's about to just put theirs out there, definitely. Um, but yeah, just something. It's like a piece of your nostalgia coming back with a vengeance. Like I don't think people realize how little that actually happens. Like it's incredible. Like it's one of those things that I was like, man, I attribute so many happy memories, and like now I'm an adult and I get to continue happy memories with my friends like Casen and others, friends of the show. We're gonna have a big online dynasty. Like I'm not even kidding when I say I'm telling you, folks. The men of America are going to disappear in July of 2024 when that game comes out. I'm telling you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
just going to be the men. I think it's going to be a lot of people, men and women, fans of college football, families. Like it's going to be good. It's going to be cool. So
And now I do want to bring up though, I don't know, we might have talked about this before offline or off the show, but the in that teaser video with the guy in the Rose Bowl, there was a comment made at the end of the video where he was like, and trust me, this ain't the only thing we're working on.
Yeah, no, I know where you're going with this.
I interpreted that as maybe being a bit of a teaser for college basketball.
Let me tell you this right now. If they come out with a if they come out with a 2K style revamped college basketball
Was it
game,
like March Madness?
yes,
Yeah.
they bring back the March Madness series. Well, at the end, it was called NCAA college basketball. I'm only saying that correctively because I'm looking at my case on the top of my Xbox 360 right over here next to my TV because I was playing it just the other day. Um, the last game they ever made NCAA college basketball. I think the avenue is open, and I think they absolutely would explore it because of the monster that is 2K. I think if
I
EA
mean
Sports,
the formula is there. Like,
oh
why
yeah,
would they not? Like,
I think if
they figured out how to do it, and
yes,
so do it.
I think if they take even a similar engine and they do it like make that is a massive competitive market that they can get into, and that if I were 2K, I'd be a little worried. I'd be like, okay, we like if I were 2K, I'd almost be sitting around saying, should we make our own first? Like I think if they do that, we might have dueling college basketball games,
I don't
which
know if they
which
can. I
I don't know
mean,
if they can either. The behemoth that is the NBA 2K, like they probably also could be like, we don't need it. We got 2K. Like we're
I
2K.
mean, I don't know. It's just I don't think that they have the infrastructure to even consider going into
Yeah.
that behemoth.
They'd be like,
The EA
EA Sports,
Sports
go ahead and do it. Go do your thing.
EA has the rights to these schools. They have this set current infrastructure for the opt-in. They can just apply that to basketball. And I mean, I think that would be super interesting.
I mean, I remember the years when EA Sports made an NBA game, NBA Live. I don't think they'll ever bring NBA Live back. They tried and it didn't work. It didn't make any financial sense. It would make all the financial sense in the world for them to bring in a college basketball game. And to be honest with you, for the sport in general, I think it would be fantastic for it.
Hmm.
If they could make it so that all the D1 programs, because there's like 300 and some D1 programs in basketball,
Yeah.
like everyone has a basketball team. So I mean, Division One. So I think there's an avenue in which I interpreted that similarly as well. That if we start to hear rumblings about a college basketball game, if this goes well, I'm here for it. I'm just telling you that right now. So yeah,
It'll be very fun. Very
very,
fun.
very fun. I hope it happens. Any further thoughts, or is it of the weeks time?
I think we can move on to of the weeks.
Time for of the weeks to close out the show. Um, I have a few here, and I could get us going unless you have one
No,
that you're
you can start off.
okay. This works out in a very good transition wise because I didn't really expect you to bring that up, but I actually have a college basketball topic to bring up to start of the weeks. And I didn't really know the best way. You probably know where I'm going with this because it's been loud where I live in the part of the country where I live in North Carolina. I will say my under attack of the week, court storming in college basketball.
Yes.
Now, the full context is that Wake Forest upset number 8 Duke over the weekend at home at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is having a great season. I looked, they're actually Joe Lunardi's first team out, at least going into last weekend, so that might have changed regardless. Uh, there was a very classic and very quick court storming by the students upon the winning of that game, in which their leading scorer Dukes was Kyle Filipowski was injured as it happened, and in a way that we've never really seen before. Like the potential was always there, but like a star player taking an injury and potentially we don't know the extent of it yet. A whole lot's come out about it yet, but we'll get there. And of course, it's raised a new suspicion. If you haven't seen the video, go look it up. I mean, he just gets kind of bull rushed. His knee collides with another kid's, and he goes over. I mean, John Shire, the head coach at Duke, was understandably beyond livid, and it kind of became like a war zone type situation where you're just trying to get your people out of there. As goes in there once again, bringing up the situation in the conversation: should we ban court storming? Some conferences have. The ACC has not. Um, that's the story by which I
Mhm.
award under attack again. Court stormings.
Yeah, that's definitely been a huge topic of discussion that's been surrounding it. There, a lot of people are heavily analyzing the footage, saying that he instigated the run in by going over to that to a fan and sort of started it, I guess, before he got ran over. So yeah, uh there's a lot of conversations about that. But I think definitely we need to figure out a way to keep players healthy, to keep the people running onto the court healthy. And um it's fun. I've done it. I've been a part of it, and it's fun to do, but you got to be smart about it, and you can't be getting into fights. I think that the reason that it happened that way was because they definitely kind of prematurely stormed when there was still like there was like a second left on the clock, right? So I think
Yeah,
that
like
like
yeah.
the because typically what happens is that like the student section is down by your bench, and so it's your guys down there by them, and then the other team is on the other side, so they can typically just get off by the time the fans would get there.
Right. And
But because
typically,
they were still like on the court, like they were still in the middle of the court.
yeah. And like me, you've seen a million college basketball games. Typically, the etiquette at the end of the game is as the clock is expiring, both coaches go shake hands, and then they're leading the handshake line, and both teams go by each other, and the handshake line happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of mutually understood that if an imminent court storming is happening, that is not happening. The guys are running to the locker room, and it is like understood in etiquette that that is what is going to happen. Coaches
Hmm.
might still meet up in the scrum or after the fact and say, "Hey, good game, man." Like typically that happens. Like the coaches will still meet up, but it's kind of mutually understood that it's like, okay, if they're storming the court, we're sprinting out of here. Like I'm telling my bench, like everyone go, like in assistant coaches, administrators, hey, go in there and don't engage because it's going to be that way. The thing about this is, yes, that did happen, Casen, and I will say that when the one particular court storming, shout out BG, happened, uh, I remember when that happened when Bowling Green knocked off Buffalo. I was working for the school at the time. You were still a student, I believe, or you were just at not
I
just
was still there. I
graduated.
was still in town. Yep.
Yep, and I thought BG actually handled that very, very well in terms of making sure that we escorted them off the court first, and they still got the storming. It doesn't look as good for the broadcast, like no, but you don't care. You still got to storm the court after you knocked off like whatever it was, number 18 team. So I there's absolutely an avenue, and it just comes from load up your security if you think that's going to happen, because there's an avenue in which you could have waited like literally 10 seconds for Duke to run into the locker room and then storm the court with your guys. But it's like, I don't know. There's a TV aspect of it. It's one of those things that I'm not for or against, because I think there's equal parts to it. Like on a fundamental level, like is it unsafe with as for court stormings? Yes, but to me, field stormings are not unsafe because all those guys are in pads. It's a football stadium. There's a lot more space for everyone to disperse. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, I always kind of looked at court stormings as even dangerous for the kids running onto it because it's such a small space. Like like the potential human crush aspect of it.
Hmm.
Now that's never really happened at the college. Like that's never happened at our college games, thankfully. But the potential is there, which is why I always kind of said I could see one way. The other side of it is if you actually banned court stormings in the entire sport, you're killing one of the best parts of the sport. And there's enough basketball people at all ages who agree, no, we cannot ban court storming. Like, come on. Um,
Yeah, totally. And
Society is, yeah.
there's definitely ways to keep, especially the opposing team, kind of protected from that. I mean, I think this particular incident only happened because they were a little early. I think definitely if you just keep them if you just have security, keep them off the court until they're at least on the other side of the court, and then you can like surround them with security if you
Or
can
at
sort
least
of
all back to the bench.
yeah. I think it was just because of the fact that they were still in the middle of the court in play basically when this happened.
Yeah.
um
I think the league as in ACC, the conference, will take a look at this absolutely because they have to, because it's Duke. That was the other thing being tossed around where I live right now. Like, of course this is going to happen now because it was Duke that this happened to, and like yes and no. I think like obviously there's more of a spotlight on it, but like a player also got injured, guys. Like if he's actually out for a significant period of time, that's not cool, regardless of who it is. So we need to figure this out. And I think you might be onto something there. Why has no one tried to put like a few security people right near the bench of like I know they've tried to, but like if you wait till they're at least at the bench, that kind of does what you just said, right?
Well,
Like
they did. There was footage of, I think it was when Creighton beat UConn, that
mm,
they sort of like
I've seen that. You're right.
outlined that. That worked. I'm just rewatching this video.
Yeah.
It part of it to me, Duke is not in any hurry to get off this court.
Well, see, that's the other part of it. People were kind of like, is Duke somewhat at fault for like, in other words, did the Duke players kind of want this to happen? Like those who were still on the court, like make it look really, really bad. I saw some people even saying that Filipowski faked this or whatever. I'm like, I don't believe that at all. If you actually look at the footage, um,
Well, if you look at the footage, I'm rewatching it back like this is a Pruder film. There's this one guy
yeah,
who's in basically, he's coming across the entire side of the court to the other side,
mm-hmm.
to the sideline to get off the court, and Filipowski is just standing there.
Standing there,
He's
yeah,
just standing there, like not even paying attention to
like
what's
there's no
happening.
urgency. Like,
Yeah.
um,
And so,
pe-
I mean, granted, there were people in the restricted area with like 0.8 seconds still left on the clock. So like people, they came in early.
yes,
Duke was not ready or prepared for when they were coming. However, the one guy from Duke saw them coming. He sprinted to the other side of the sideline
right.
to get out the court.
I
And I don't know if he just wasn't looking because it looked like his head was the other side, but he was not in any hurry to get off the
Well,
court.
Filipowski is also much taller than all of the students storming the court, so that's also part of it.
Very,
Like very like a whole head and a half. I wanted to point this out though that people have talked a lot about the Caitlin Clark incident that happened earlier
mhm.
this year, right there in your city, right? Because I was in
Yep.
Ohio. Similar situation. She collided with a fan. Now, I remember even when I first saw that, from whatever angle you see that happen at, it looks like Caitlin definitely sees her and runs right into her, right into that fan.
Yeah.
Um, like thankfully, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Thankfully, because the fan is not looking, but like Caitlin absolutely saw that fan coming out of the periffs. And if she didn't, like, come on. Thankfully, Caitlin was not injured because I think that would have also caused a lot of sway. Because I remember thinking to myself, okay, it's cool. Can we focus on the fact that there was a court storming for a women's game? Because that's just awesome for the women's sport as well.
Hmm.
And the Caitlin's okay. Thankfully, she was okay. Um, I'll give another quick of the week shout out to Iowa. Uh, uh, court decoration of the week, maybe of the year. They put the Clark 22 at the spot where Caitlin shot the ball from to become the all time scorer in a women's college basketball.
That's really
They put
cool.
a Clark 22 on the spot, like where she actually shot it on the court,
I didn't
forever to be
realize
there.
that was where it was. I saw they did that. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that was where it is.
yeah. Quick side note, quick side shout out. I didn't think, but just thinking about it right now of the week. Anyway, um, I think we're in agreement about this. We think there's an avenue to which we can have court stormings and also make them much safer. But
Yeah.
what happened at Wake Forest really was an outlier because like that was actual chaos. Like I'd be like, oh man, if like I've never been on the receiving end of that, but I know that would like frighten me. Like even as a player, I'd be like, okay,
Hmm.
we got to get out of here, guys. like I would be telling the guys on the bench, like as a team captain, like, hey, like if we do lose, you sprint back to the locker room. Okay, we're getting out of here.
Hmm.
Don't leave your guys behind, which they didn't. You know, Duke made sure everyone got out of there, but scary sight, man. Yeah. So that was my first
Yeah.
of the week. Two, I guess.
Yeah, that was definitely one of mine. I don't think we talked about it. But the another firing of the week. I don't know. I might have missed it the last time, but or we might have talked about it last time. But Chris Holtman is out of Ohio State, and
No,
there's
we didn't talk about that.
the it's definitely very interesting. I mean, being here, it's a very interesting conversation because Ohio State basketball has always been second fiddle to the football team. However, they have never been more completely irrelevant.
Mm,
Along with a time when the women's basketball program is very good. and so there's a lot of weird discontent with the basketball team, and it's just you know um, standards not there. So there's a huge conversation about coaching searches and stuff like that for Ohio State. Interesting
Well,
stuff, fun
well,
stuff, and they
that is interesting. I get my rebuttal to that though is that I actually just looked it up here because someone did point this out to me. Holtman was at Ohio State since 2017. That's a
yeah,
long time ago.
very long time.
Like I was really thinking about that. Like he was at this 2017 to 2024. 2017 is the year I graduated college. So he's been the head guy there all that time. And they haven't really made any noise. So to do that mid-season, I always don't like that. But it's not like they didn't give him time at Ohio
Yeah,
State.
yeah. I from what I am
Yeah,
aware of,
yeah,
um, there's also a really interesting thing here. So from what I'm aware of,
sure.
um, there became a moment where the locker room just needed it to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Lost the locker room kind
that
of thing.
that it so I don't know if you know about this, but Ohio State is
No.
currently in transition between athletic directors.
Oh, okay.
So Gene Smith, who's been there forever, is on his way out. They hired Ross Bjork from Texas A&M to take over, and so they're kind of both working in conjunction. And from what I'm aware of, Gene Smith made the decision to fire Chris Holtman, but Ross Bjork is hiring his replacement.
Ah,
So and I mean they'll probably end up working a little together in
sure.
tandem to kind of run that. But the decision to fire was made from Gene Smith, who hired him, and is always he's never been super quick to fire anybody, because he's a very um relationship based athletic director. Of
Yeah,
he's very close with all of his coaches.
for sure.
So he just knew that there was a point in time in which it had to get done for them to move on, and along with the fact of they're the first big opening, and so now they can start to target everybody
Yeah.
before March is even happening. So the big whale, Dusty May at FAU and um Greg McDermott at Creighton. There's a lot of big
Yeah.
white whales that they're looking out for, um, and so they can get first dibs on them when the time comes. But
Very
interesting
interesting.
things
Okay, we
happening down here.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I've got just trying to see here. Sometimes it happens where like I can't even read my own can't read my own writing. I have a jersey retirement of the week. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. Shout out to one Yarmer Yager, who since our last show, Casen, returned to Pittsburgh to have his
Yes.
number 68 risen to the rafters, of which anyone from Pittsburgh would have ever told you it was going to happen at some point, obviously, really majorly before my time. I remember the very end of Lemieux. I don't really remember Yags that much, but Yarmy Yager comes back. It's as cool as advertised. The Pens come out with it with the 68, and they all wearing mullet wigs, and it was as good as advertised. And honestly, one of those things that if I had been in Pittsburgh during the time, I would have loved to go see Yager and all that stuff. It was also cool because I think like the Pens have been good, in their history and all that, and their 50-year history and everything. But we only have three retired numbers. A lot of people don't know what the third one is. Now three retired numbers. It was two, was this other one, and 66. Well, now 68's up there. 21 is actually the other number up there. A lot of people don't realize that 21. I always like to stump people with that. Like 21 is a retired number for two teams in Pittsburgh. Which are they? Pittsburgh Pirates, obviously, and Penguins. Quick story: Michel Briere, I think is how you say his name, was actually a player that way before the Penguins were relevant. Actually, passed away mid-season via a car crash, and he was supposed to be like the young sung hero that was going to be like the first great player in the history of the Penguins, right? So
Mhm.
they retired his number, and his number's actually up there in blue because that was what they were wearing at the time. So his number's up there, but it's awesome when you look up there now because you see those three numbers, and I think you might have even seen I put on Instagram like here in like another 20 years, 87 is going to be up there, 71 is going to be up there, 58 is going to be up there, and they even show that like probably 58 up there and I said maybe 29, maybe Fleury will get his number 29 retired in Pittsburgh. I could see it happening because no one else is going to wear it in Pittsburgh. So But anyway, that was my retirement of the week. One of the greatest of all time, Jaromir Jagr, who is still playing and as a player owner up over in the Czech Republic, uh, amazingly, is has his number retired in Pittsburgh. So it was awesome.
That's great. That's awesome.
I have a Jagr jersey too, so just throwing it out there. Had it for a long time. I've had it since college, just since the days of the traveling Jagrs, where those guys would all go around. Yeah, I was like, man, I need me a Jagr jersey. I found one on eBay, and it's great. So
I saw all the footage and stuff coming out when he was there. He should have just signed a contract for the rest of the season.
people were saying that, like, hey, can Jagr just like hang out and like pseudo be on the team for the rest of the year? I'd be like, I mean, I don't think there's a person in that locker room who would say like no. I thought it was awesome though that he went
He's
out.
he's the like the e-bugs. He's the emergency backup forward.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. It's funny. I thought it was awesome that he actually like straight up went out for practice several times with them. I was like, oh, we're doing this. We're just doing the whole like, yeah, it keeps me relevant, keeps me, doing my thing. So anyway, shout out Yags forever, number 68.
Great, great. I'm surprised. I honestly was more confused when I saw that stuff. I was more like surprised that it didn't happen already before.
Yeah,
Like I was surprised it took so long.
I had a lot of people I had a lot of people say that as well. For the longest time when because Yager played in the NHL still late into his career, and he played for every team. It felt like, and it always felt like will he come back to the Penguins to end his career? And it wasn't like Yager just didn't care about that. Like he just wanted to play hockey anywhere that would sign him. And through those years, Ruffiero and the other GMs and all that, like people thought, is there bad blood between like Mario Lemieux and Yager? And none of that was ever true. It was all media speculation. For him, it was just that GM at the time didn't want to sign him for just the sake of nostalgia, and Mario didn't meddle with that business. So it wasn't one of those things where it's like, I want you to sign Yags because I want him to have a send off. Like, no, Mario has never done that. He's been a very hands off, successful owner of the Penguins.
Hmm.
And so that's the only reason it didn't happen before. But it was always one of those things where how long is I think they waited for as long as they could to where like he's not going to play at least in the NHL anymore. And then it was just kind of like lining it up with his schedule because he's still playing over there. He's still playing. They want to do it during a season, so it's got to work out. And like he's for sure never playing in the NHL again. So it's like, oh, we finally found a time and they did it, and here we go. Also at a time when Mario's still having like interest and is still around, you know what I mean? To do that. So um, I'm with you there, but like it feels like it should have it absolutely could have happened probably 3 or 4 years ago. They just wanted to wait on it. So and Penguins are under new ownership too. I mean, that's one of those things like once you get that stability in there, it's like, okay, let's finally do that. So
Yeah.
anyway, you have another of the week.
Um.
I have one.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I ever told you this, but it's a couple weeks ago. Um. I ended up going to a bar, like a sports grill here in town. Um, and as we walk in, we just see Cardell Jones just hanging out,
Yeah,
shaking
there you
hands
go.
with people, and we're like, oh, hey, that's
Casually. What's
cool.
up, man?
So that was sighting of the week a couple weeks ago.
Love that. Love that. I will go ahead and toss out an upset of the week. My upset of the week does go to Wake Forest basketball because they had the
Hmm.
most relevant, they had the most prominent upset of the week in my last circle. My last of the week goes to a thing that we have to talk about and has nothing to do with sports. It's my way of injecting some nice pop culture into our show. My absolute bomb of the week goes to Sony and Madam Web for being,
That
yeah.
was yeah. I was gonna bring that up too. Yeah,
Now
perfect transition on that
let me
one.
just set the like if you're not familiar, it's the latest Sony Spider-Man tie-in movie that they're making just to retain the rights to the characters. Whatever. All you got to know is it came out, and I got to be honest, Casen, when the trailer came out like around Halloween this past year, I'm not even kidding. I saw the trailer and I said that looks like the worst superhero movie that's going to come out next year. And from what I have not seen it, because from everyone's reaction, it sounds like it's the worst superhero related movie to come out in at least 5 years.
I have heard people say it's one of the worst movies to come out in the last
Yeah,
5 years.
it's like it's actually just the worst movie that might come out this year. I'm sure something will be worse, but um like Morbius became like its almost viral sensation with how bad it was because they put it back into theaters, which was a ridiculous idea at the time when it happened. This immediately people were like, no, it's worse than that. I was like, this is, and what's amazing is that we've gotten to this point. If you're wondering why they're doing this, they're doing these Spider-Man adjacent films. It's so Sony can hang on to the film rights for the character and the character in general. They would rather put a movie like this out and just chuck it out in the middle of February and push it out, making no money on it, losing money on it, to retain the rights so that they can keep getting the money from those eventual Tom Holland sequels or the Spider-Verse films. And I kind of look at these movies as like the sacrificial lamb for those for those projects. Like as crazy as it is, like that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
Hmm.
Because let's be real, under the hood, like a lot of people are like, man, Sony live action. I'm like, guys, Sony has showed that they can do good things with the franchise. They can collab with Marvel, do these Tom Holland stuff, and the Spider Verse has just been in house the whole time. Like those movies are incredible. And I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know how much they're gonna be able to milk that after the franchise after the trilogy's over, but I know they have other plans for that movie that series
Yeah,
to continue. But I
I
don't know.
mean,
It just
my question with this,
that's why I wore this shirt today. By the way,
I
another
mean,
Spider-Man topic.
yeah, I mean, I'm again just so confused as to why they're just they're so complacent with even caring about making relatively digestible movies. At least the Venom movies are watchable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I the second that I saw that they casted Dakota Johnson in this, I was like, okay, that's just not gonna work. I mean, it no, it's like it's just Dakota Johnson is who she is, and she is not a leading actress in a superhero movie.
Well,
Like that's just not her personality.
I would agree, I would agree honestly, and also I don't know. I mean, does it sour these actor and actresses' potential of being in another Marvel project and being like in the because sometimes the agent just sees a Marvel related thing and pushes it towards them, right? Um, I don't know necessarily that's the case. It would have happened, but like I could absolutely see someone like a Sydney Sweeney in the MCU. Um, among others and other stuff. But it's like, I don't know. It just it's one of those things where the second I learned that they were even making a Madam Web movie, I was like, okay, well that's not going to be good. Then the trailer, and then this is exactly what has happened. I mean, there's another one of these movies still on the schedule, and there's probably going to be more. But Craven is out there
Hmm.
still, they coming out next year, and it's all just so strange, man. But yeah, I don't love it, but I don't love the area of that is, but at least they're retaining the rights without damaging the actual Spider-Man brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's like they can't even use certain characters in there. Like they're not. It's like I guess like the Parkers are in that movie or whatever stuff, but like they're not damaging anything like any future potential like. I mean, that's why I didn't necessarily love what the Venom movies were doing because the first Venom is not a good movie. I have not seen the second one. Heard it's worse. Not going to see the third one, but it's like if Venom were to come around, that's why I was happy with the Spider-Man 2 video game because it's like at least we got a modern interpretation of what Venom could be done correctly because I would love to see Venom done correctly within the actual MCU rather than just them just bring in Tom Hardy, you know what I mean? But whatever. I mean, the multiverse storytelling works. So,
Yeah.
without rambling
I
on,
well, no, I mean, I think that like the whole Madam Web thing was just like you saw it because there were like clips going viral of Dakota Johnson in the press junkets and in different interviews about the movie. And like she did not care about that movie at all.
she also hadn't seen it.
Yeah, she was like, she does not care at all. And it
She
was just
hadn't
like,
seen it
yeah.
it's like it people made the joke of like does she even know what movie this is that she's talking about like she's given like very general like
Yeah, the answer is no.
yeah
She doesn't even know what, yeah, no, she does not have any care about whatever is happening.
I've
It,
always on another topic I've always found that fascinating when it comes to Hollywood of not necessarily a bad project but when you're in something when you're very famous and you have to do the press junkets of something that you might have put in your blood sweat and tears in because flat out at the end of the day like a lot of actors even famous ones will take a bad project for the sake of the paycheck they need the paycheck right and
mhm.
like when you know you're in something that is gonna bomb, right? or you maybe not have an idea, but you slowly realize that, oh, this is gonna potentially be like I might be up for some Razzies for this. Um, one of my end of the year things
Yeah.
also was like the first MCU movie to ever get a Razzie nomination was Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which it's like, of course, so like whatever. But anyway, I think it got a couple nominations. But um, like what, like what, like that would be a really tough spot to be. Like another example, the series finale of Game of Thrones. th- People danced around that in all those press things like it was nothing else, but like no one was happy with the way that ended. And it was so obvious. And it made for some really, really uncomfortable and cringeworthy and awkward red carpet moments. From
Yeah.
Amelia Clark, from everyone, from Amelia Clark, from um, Peter Dinklage, like everyone
Hmm.
involved was just like, yeah, this isn't great. Like egg on your face moments. And I just feel like that would be the one price of like the fame that would be hard to deal with. Like I'd be like, oh man,
I
I gotta sell this terrible product.
yeah, I mean, I've heard different people talk about that before about like what it's like to make a movie that you know is bad while you're making it. And it's sort of unique to like these huge superhero movies or the huge big budget blockbusters that have a ton of like press around them. But yeah, I think by the time you're sitting there doing like interview after interview about it, you've made peace with the fact and acknowledged the fact that it's going to be awful, and you know it's going to be awful because you've known for months
Yeah,
it's awful. So you
brutal.
are aware. But yeah, I mean, tough. That's tough.
Tough look out there. But anyway, yeah, stay heads up there, everyone involved. That's all I can say. In a lot of ways, I think there were some suits up top that really, really threw all y'all under the bus with that project. So, and that's the show.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got any parting thoughts, Casen?
Um, yeah, yeah.
He sure does.
Keep in mind, as we continue to talk about basketball and or college basketball, March Madness. Um, I've got a future on UConn, so I need UConn to keep winning.
UConn, hey man, I couldn't tell you right now who I think is going to win it all, but UConn's certainly there. They got the nucleus. Could they go back to back? I mean, they're good enough. I will my parting shot on that same topic as we get closer to March, and I mean, we're quite literally like a week or two, like we're like a week away from the conference tournament starting. Um, I know it because it's my life right now, kind of. um, but that being said, there is one team that I actually have said I wouldn't be surprised if they go on a warpath come March. And you have any idea who I'm thinking of based on what happened
No.
last year?
Oh,
The Boilermakers.
yeah,
They've
yeah.
looked great this year. They still their best player and Zach Edey. And the thing is, sort of like how when Virginia lost to UMBC, the following year they went on a run to just win the national championship. I wouldn't be surprised if Purdue does that this year because of what happened. Like the motivation to get back.
It's possible, but I mean, maybe.
Maybe. I'm just throwing it out there.
I still have a lot. I still need to see a lot more
Mm-hmm.
evidence. I mean, obviously, if it happens, it happens. But I have yet to see the evidence that Matt Painter can do that. Maybe
Oh, I'm with
definitely
you.
go further, but
I'm with you.
um, yeah, we'll see. It's still Purdue. Oh, I totally forgot this. One more of the week.
Yeah.
Suit of the week, and that goes to Rick Pitino's all white suit that he
Oh
wore
my.
last night. The St. John's, they upset number 15 Creighton last night.
They were doing an
Or two
Italian.
days ago.
They had like an Italian heritage night. So like,
Yeah, Sean Stellato was there.
yep.
Tommy DeVito's agent, he was there.
And the
Um,
guy from Sopranos was there.
yeah,
Like one of
yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Apparently, Rick Pitino said that he bought that suit Saturday.
yeah.
And he because like he was like, yeah, I don't. His wife told him to wear a white suit, but he didn't have one that fit, so he had to go get a new one the right before the game.
My thing about that is if Rick Pitino could have gone up to the press conference at the end of the game and been like, I'll be honest, I bought this suit about 10 years ago, and this is the first time I've had an occasion to wear it. Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I could believe either one. I'd be like, yeah, I can believe Rick Pitino just bought this. I also could believe he's just been saving it for this exact occasion. I don't know. You just keep a white suit around.
I look, Rick Pitino at St. John's wearing a white suit. It's the most perfect thing of all time. I definitely think that we were treated to the uh on Italian American Heritage Night. Yeah, perfect,
Suit of the
perfect
week,
night.
and I'll add spectacle of the week. There you go.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, as we said at the beginning of the show, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening. We always appreciate you. We are taking it week by week right now. Casen and I are, until things start to loosen up a little bit more, which they will. But we will absolutely. This is our last show in February, no matter what happens. So, the next time we come at you, this will be March, because this is March.
This is March.
This is March, and this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And we'll see you at the next stop.